Chapter 35. Veritaserum. Harry felt himself slam flying into the ground, press into grass. The smell of it filled his face was nostrils. He had closed his eyes while the portkit transported him, and he kept them closed now. He did not move. All the breath seemed to have been knocked out of him. His head was swimming so badly he felt as though the ground beneath him were swaying like the deck of ship. To hold himself steady, he tightened his hold on the two things he was still clutching, the smooth, cold handle of the Triwizard Cup and Cedric's body. He felt as though he would slide away into blackness gathering at the edge of his brain if he let go of either of them. Shock and exhaustion kept him on the ground, breathing in the smell of the grass, waiting for someone to do something to happen, and all the while his scar burned dully on his forehead. Torrent of sound deafened and confessed him. There were voices everywhere, footsteps, screams. He remained where he was, his face screwed up again, the noise as though it were a nightmare that would pass. Then a pair of hands seized him roughly and turned him over. Hurry, hurry. He opened his eyes. He was looking up at the starry sky, and Albus Dumbledore was crouched over him. The dark shadow of the crowd of people pressed in around them, pushing nearer. Harry felt the ground beneath his head reverberating with footsteps. He had come back to the edge of maze. He could see the stands rising above him, the shape of people moving in them, the stars above. Harry let go of the cup. He clutched Cedric to him even more tightly. He raised his free hand and seized Dumbledore's wrist, while Dumbledore's face swung in and out of focus. He's back, Harry whispered. He's back. Voldemort. What's going on? What's happened? The face of Cornelius Fudge appeared upside down over Harry. It looked quite pale. My God, Diggory, it whispered Dumbledore. He's dead. The word were repeated, the shadow figure pressing in on them gasped to those around them, and then others shouted it, screeched it into the night. He's dead. He's dead. Cedric Diggory dead. Harry let go of him. He heard Fudge's voice say, and he felt fingers trying to pry him from Cedric Lim's body. Harry wouldn't let him go. Then Dumbledore's face, which was still blurred and misted, come closer. Harry, you can't help him now. It's over. Let's go. He wanted me to bring him back, Harry muttered. It seemed important to explain this. He wanted me to bring him back to his parents. That's right, Harry. Just let go now. Dumbledore bent down and, with extraordinary strength of a man so old and thin, raised Harry from the ground and set him on his feet. Harry swayed. His head was pounding. His injured leg would no longer support his weight. The crowd around them jostled, fighting to get closer, pressing darkly in on him. What's happened? What's wrong with him? Diggory said. He'll need to go to the hospital wing, Fudge was saying loudly. He's ill. He's injured. Dumbledore, his parents. They are here. They are in the stands. I'll take Harry. Dumbledore, I'll take him. No, I would prefer Dumbledore. Albus Diggory, running, he's coming over. Don't you think you will tell him before he see Harry stay here? Girls were screaming, sobbing hysterically. The scene flickered oddly before Harry's eye. It's all right, son. I have got you. Come on. Hospital wing. Dumbledore said Harry thickly, the pounding in his scar making him feel as though he was about to throw up. His vision was blurring worse than ever. You need to lie down. Come on now. Someone larger and stronger than he was, half pulling half carrying him through the frightening crowd. Harry heard people gasping, screaming, and shouting as the man supporting him pushed a path through them, taking him back to the castle across the lawn, past the lake and the dumb-stank sheep. Harry heard nothing but the heavy breath of the man helping him walk. "What happened, Harry?" the man asked. At last, as he lifted Harry up a stone step, clunk, clunk, clunk. It was Mad Eye Moody. "Up was a portkey," said Harry, as they crossed the entrance hall. "Took me and Cedric to the graveyard, and Voldemort was there." Lord Voldemort, clunk, clunk, marble stairs. The Dark Lord was there. "What happened then?" "Killed Cedric." "They killed Cedric, and then?" Clunk, clunk, clunk. "Along the corridor, made a potion, got his body back. The Dark Lord got his body back. He's returned, and the Death Eaters come, and then we dueled." "You dueled with Dark Lord?" "Got away. My wand did something funny. I saw my mum and dad. They came out of his wand." "I'm here, Harry." In there was a sit down. "You'll be all right now. Drink this." Harry heard a key scrap in the lock and felt a cup being pushed into his hand. "Drink it. You'll feel better. Come on now." "Harry, I need to know exactly what happened." Moody helped tip the stuff down Harry's throat. He coughed, a peppery taste burning his throat. Moody's office came into sharper focus, and so did Moody himself. He looked as white as first had looked, and both eyes were fixed unblinkingly upon Harry's face. "Voldemort's back, Harry. You are sure he's back?" "How did he do it?" "Stuff from his father's grave, and from Wormtail and me," said Harry. His head felt clearer. His scar wasn't hurting so badly. He could now see Moody's face distinctly. Even though the office was dark, he could still hear screaming and shouting from the distant coach field. "What did the Dark Lord take from you?" said Moody. "Blood," said Harry, raising his arm. His sleeve was ripped where Wormtail dagger had torn it. Moody let out his breath in a long, low hiss, and Death Eater, the return. "Yes," said Harry. "Lots of them." "How did he treat them?" Moody asked quietly. "Did he forgive them?" But Harry had suddenly remembered he should have told Dumbledore. He should have said it straightway. "There is a Death Eater at Hogwarts. There is a Death Eater here. They pulled my name in the Goblet of Fire. They made sure I got through the end." Harry tried to get up, but Moody pushed him back down. "I know who the Death Eater is," he said quietly. "Barcroft," said Harry wildly. "Where is he? Have you gotten him? Is he locked up?" "Barcroft," said Moody with the odd laugh. "Barcroft fled tonight when he felt the dark mark burn upon his arm. He betrayed too many faithful supporters of the Dark Lord to wish to meet them, but I doubt he will get far. The Dark Lord was away off tackling his enemy. Carcroft is gone. He ran away, but then he didn't put my name in the goblet." "No," said Moody slowly. "No, he didn't. It was I who did that." Harry heard, but didn't believe. "No, you didn't," he said. "You don't do that. You can't have done." "I assure you I did," said Moody, and his magical eyes swung around and fixed upon the door. And Harry knew he was making sure that there was no one outside it. At the same time, Moody drew out his wand and pointed at Harry. "He forgave them, he said, the Death Eater who went free, the one who escaped Azkaban, and," said Harry. He was looking at the wand. Moody was pointing at him. "This was bad joke. It had to be." "I ask you," said Moody quietly, "whether he forgave the scum who never even went to look for him. Those teachers, proud, who wouldn't even brave Azkaban for him. The faithless, worthless bites of Fleet who were brave enough to cower in mask at the Quidditch World Cup, but fled at the sight of the dark mark when I fired it into the sky. You fired? What are you talking about? I told you, Harry, I told you. If there is one thing I hate more than any other, it's a Death Eater who walk free. They turned their back on my master when he needed them most. I expected him to punish them. I expected him to torture them, tell me, hurt them. Harry, Moody's face was suddenly lit with an insane smile. Tell me, he told them that I alone remained faithful, prepared to risk everything to deliver to him the one thing he wanted above all, you. You didn't. It can't be you. Who put your name in the goblet of fire under the name of different school? I did. Who frightened of every person I thought might try to hurt you or prevent you from winning the tournament? I did. Who nugged Hagrid into showing your dragons? I did it. Who helped you see the only way you could beat the dragon? I did. Moody's magical eye had now left the door. It was fixed upon Harry. His lopsided mouth leered more widely than ever. It hasn't been so easy, Harry, guiding you through this task without arousing suspicion. I have had to use every ounce of cunning I possess so that my hand would not be detectable in your success. Dumbledore would have been very suspicious if you had managed everything too easily. As long as you got into the maze, preferably with the decent head start, then I knew I would have a chance of getting rid of the other champions and leaving you way clear. But I also had to contend with your stupidity. The second task, that was when I was most afraid we would fail. I was keeping watch on you, Potter. I knew you hadn't worked out of the X clue, so I had to give you another hint. You didn't? Harry said hoarsely. Cedric gave me the clue. Who told Cedric to open it underwater? I did. I trusted that he would pass the information on you. Decent people are so easy to manipulate, Potter. I was sure Cedric would want to reply you for telling him about the dragons, and so he did. Even when Potter, even when you seemed like to forget. I was watching all the time, all those hours in the library. Didn't you realize that the book you needed was in your dormitory all along? I planted it there early and I gave it to the long bottom boy. Don't you remember magical water plant of the Mediterranean? It would have told you all you need to know about Gillyweed. I expect you to ask everyone and anyone you pull for help. Longbottom would have told you in an instant, but you did not. You did not. You have a streak of pride and independence that might have ruined all. So what would I do? Fred you information about another innocent source. You told me that your ball, a house elf or Dobby, had given you a Christmas present. I called the elf to the staff room to collect some clothes for cleaning. I sat a loud conversation with Professor McGonagall about the hostage who had been taken and whether Potter would think to use Gillyweed, and your little elf friend ran straight to Steph's office and then hurried to find you. Moody's wand was still pointing directly at Harry's heart. Over his shoulder, foggy shapes were moving in the foil glass on the wall. You were so long in that light, Potter. I thought you had grown. Luckily, Dumbledore took you IDC for nobility and Mark you high for aid. I breathed again. You had an easier time for it than you should have in that maze tonight, of course, said Moody. I was patrolling around it, able to see through the outer hedge, able to curse many obstacles out of your ways. I stunned Flora de la Cora was she passed. I put the imperious curse on Crumb so that he would finish degree and leave your path to the cup clear. Harry stared at Moody. He just didn't see how he could be Dumbledore's friend. The famous horror, the one who had caught so many Death Eaters. It made no sense at all. The foggy shape of the foil glassware sharpening had become more distinct. Harry could see the outline of three people over Moody's shoulder, moving closer and closer. But Moody wasn't watching them. His magical eye was upon Harry. The Dark Lord didn't manage to kill you, Potter, and he so wanted to, whispered Moody. Imagine how he will reward me when he finds that I have done it for him. I gave you to him. Then he think he need above all to the regenerate, and then I kill you for him. I will be honored beyond all other Death Eaters. I will be the dearest, his closest supporter, closer than a son. Moody's normal eye was bludgeoning, the magical eye fixed upon Harry. The door was barred, and Harry knew he would never reach his own wand in time. The Dark Lord and I, said Moody, and he looked completely insane now, towering over Harry, leaning down at him. How much in common both of us, for instance, had very disappointing fathers. Very disappointing indeed. Both of us suffered the indignity, Harry being named after those fathers, and both of us had the pleasure, the very great pleasure of killing our fathers to ensure the continued rise of the Dark Order. You're mad, Harry said. He couldn't stop himself. You're mad. Mad? Am I? Said Moody, his voice rising uncontrollably. We'll see who is mad now that the Dark Lord has returned. With me at his side, he is back. Harry Potter, you did not conquer him and now I conquer you. Moody raised his wand. He opened his mouth. Harry plunged his own hand onto his robe. Stupefied, there was a blinding flash, a red light with a great splintering and crashing. The door of Moody's office was blasted apart. Moody was thrown backward into the office floor, Harry still staring at the place where Moody's face had been. Saw Albus Dumbledore, Professor Snape, and Professor McGonagall looking back at him out of the foil glass. He looked around and saw the three of them standing in the doorway, Dumbledore in front, his wand outstretched. At that moment, Harry fully understood for the first time why people said Dumbledore was the only wizard Voldemort had ever feared. The look upon Dumbledore's face as he stared down at the unconscious form of Mad-Eye Moody was more terrible than Harry would have ever imagined. There was no beginning smile upon Dumbledore's face, no twinkle in the eyes behind the spectacles. There was cold fury in every line of the ancient face, a sense of the power radiation from Dumbledore as though he were giving off burning heat. He stepped into the office, placed a foot underneath Moody's unconscious body, and kicked him over onto his back so that his face was visible. Snape followed him, looking into the foil glass where his own face was still visible. Glaring into the room, Professor McGonagall went straight to Harry. Come along, Potter, she whispered. The thin line of her mouth was twitching as she was about to cry. Come along, hospitaling. No, said Dumbledore sharply. Dumbledore, he out to look at him. He began through enough tonight. He will stay Minerva because he need to understand, said Dumbledore curtly. Understanding is the first step to acceptance, and only with acceptance can there be recovery. He need to know who has put him through the order he has suffered tonight and why. Moody, Harry said, he was still in a state of complete disbelief. How can it have been Moody? This is not Alastor Moody, said Dumbledore quietly. You have ever known Alastor Moody? The real Moody would not have removed you from my side after what happened tonight. Moment hit you, I knew, and I followed. Dumbledore bent down over Moody's limb. from the put, a hand inside the ropes. He pulled out Moody's hip flask and a set of keys on a ring. Then he turned to Professor McGonagall and Snape. Severus, please fetch me the strongest truth potion you possess, and then go down to the kitchen and bring up the house elf called Winky. Minerva, kindly go down to Hagrid's house, where you will find a large black dog sitting in the pumpkin patch. Take the dog up to my office. Tell him I will be with him shortly. Then come back here. If either Snape or McGonagall found this instruction peculiar, they hid their confession. Both turned at once and left the office. Dumbledore walked over to the trunk with the 7 lock fitted, the first key in the lock, and opened it. Contained a mass spell books. Dumbledore closed the trunk, placed the second key in the second lock, and opened the trunk again. The spell book had vanished. This time it contained assorted of broken snake scope, some parchment and quills, and what looked like a silvery invisible clock. Harry watched astonished as Dumbledore placed the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth key in the respective lock, reopening the trunk and each time revealing different content. Then he placed the seventh key in the lock to open the lid, and Harry let out a cry of amazement. He was looking down into a kind of pit and underground room, and lying on the floor some 10 feet below, apparently fast asleep, thin and starved in appearance, was the real Mad-Eye Moody. His wooden leg was gone. The socket that would have held magical eye looked empty beneath its lid, and chunk of his gizelle hair were missing. Harry stared thunderstruck between the sleeping Moody in the trunk and the unconscious Moody lying on the floor of the office. Dumbledore climbed into the trunk, lowered himself, and fell lightly onto the floor beside the sleeping Moody. He bent over him, stunned, controlled by the Emperor's curse. Very weak, he said, of course they would have needed to keep him alive. Harry threw out down the impostor clock. He's freezing. Madame Pomfrey will need to see him. But he seemed in no immediate danger. Harry did as he was told. Dumbledore covered Moody in the cloak, tucked it around him, and clambered out of the trunk again. And then he picked up the hip flask that stood upon the desk, unscrewed it, and turned it over. A thick glutinous liquid splattered onto the office floor. Polyjuice potion, Harry said. Dumbledore. You see the simplicity of it, and the brilliance, for Moody ever does. Drink expect from his flask. He will well known for it. The impostor needed, of course, to keep the real Moody close by so that he could continue making the potion. You see his here. Dumbledore looked down at the Moody's in the trunk. The impostor has been cutting it off all year. See where it is uneven, but I think in the excitement of tonight, your fake Moody might have forgotten to take it as frequently as he should have done. On the hour, every hour, we shall see. Dumbledore pulled out the chair at the desk and sat down upon it, his eye fixed upon the unconscious Moody on the floor. Harry stared at him too. Minutes passed in silence, then before Harry's very eyes, face of the man on the floor began to change. The scare were disappearing, the skin was becoming smooth, the mangled nose became whole and stared to shrink. The long mane of grizzling grey hair was withdrawing into the scalp, into turning into color of a straw. Suddenly, with a loud clunk, the wooden leg fell away as a normal leg regrew in its place. Next moment, the magical eyeball had popped out of the man's face as the real eye replaced it. It rolled away across the floor and continued to sliver in every direction. Harry saw a man lying before him, pale skinned, slightly freckled, with a mop of hair. He knew who he was. He had seen him in Dumbledore's pensive, had watched him being led away from Ford by the Dementor, trying to convince Mr. Krauss that he was innocent, but he was lined around the eye now and looked Much older, there were hurried footsteps outside in the corridor. Snape and returned to Winky at the heel. Professor McGonagall was right behind them. Crouch, Snape said, stopping dead in the doorway. Barty Crouch, good heaven, said Professor McGonagall, stopping dead and staring down at the man on the floor. Flitty, deceived, Winky peered around Snape's leg, her mouth open wide, and she let out the piercing shriek. Master, Barty, Master Barty, what you doing here? She flung herself forward onto the young man's chest. You killed him. You is killed him. You is killed Master's son. He is simply stunned Winky and Dumbledore. Step aside, please. Severus, you have the potion. Snape handed Dumbledore a small glass bottle of completely clear liquid, the Veritaserum with which he had threatened Harry in the class. Dumbledore got up, bent over the man on the floor. He pulled him out into sitting position again. The wall beneath the foreglass in which Dumbledore reflected Dumbledore, Snape, and McGonagall were still glaring down upon them all. Winky remained on her knees, trembling, her hand over her face. Dumbledore forced the man's mouth open and poured 3 drops inside it. Then he pointed his wand at the man's chest and then Rennerved. Crouch's son opened his eyes. His face was lank, his gaze unfocused. Dumbledore knelt before him so that their faces were level. Can you hear me? Dumbledore asked quietly. The man's eyelid flickered. Yes, he muttered. I would like you to tell us, said Dumbledore softly, how you came to here. How did you escape from Azkaban? Crouch took a deep, stuttering breath, then began to speak in a flat, expressionless voice. My mother saved me. She knew she was dying. She pursued my father to rescue me as a last favor to her. He loved her as he had never loved me. He agreed. They came to visit me. They gave me a draught of Polyjuice potion containing one of my mother's hair. She took a draught of Polyjuice potion containing one of my hairs. We took on each other's appearance. Winky was shaking her head trembly. Say no more, Master Barty. Say no more. You is getting your father into trouble. But Crouch took another deep breath and continued in the same flat voice. The Dementors are blind. They sense one healthy, one dying person entering Azkaban. They sense one healthy, one dying person leaving it. My father smuggled me out disguised as my mother. In case any prisoner who watching through their doors, my mother died in a short while after in Azkaban. She was careful to drink Polyjuice potion and she was terribly unhappy and terribly upset. Everyone to be me. The man I lied, flickered, and what did your father do to you when he had got you home? Said Dumbledore quietly. Staged my mother's death, a quite private funeral. That grave is empty. The house elves nursed me back to health. Then I had to be concealed. I had to be controlled. My father had to use a number of spells to subdue me. When I had recovered my strength, I thought only of finding my master, of returning to his service. How did your father subdue you? Said Dumbledore. The Emperor's curse, Kraus said. I was under my father's control. I was forced to wear an invisibility cloak day and night. I was always with the house elf. She was my keeper and caretaker. She pitied me. She persuaded my father to give me occasional treat reward for my good behavior. Master Barty, Master Barty, sobbed Winky through her hand. You isn't out to tell them we is getting in trouble. Did anybody ever discover that you were still alive? Said Dumbledore softly. Did anybody know except your father and the house elf? Yes, said Crouch, his eyelid flickering away. A witch in my father's office. Bertha Jorkins. She came to the house with paper for my father's signature. He was not at home. Winky showed her inside and returned to kitchen to me, but Bertha Jorkins heard Winky talking to me. She came to investigate. She heard enough to guess who was hiding under the invisibility cloak. My father arrived him, she confirmed him. He put a very powerful memory charm on her to make her forget, and she had found out too powerful. He said it damaged her memory permanently. Why is she coming to nose into my master's private business? Sobbed Winky. Why isn't she leaving us be? Tell me about the Quidditch World Cup, said Dumbledore. Winky talked my father into it, said Crouch, still in the same monotonous voice. She spent months pursuing him. I had not left the house for years. I had loved Quidditch. Let me go, he said. He will be in invisibility cloak. He can watch, let him smell fresh air for once. She said my mother would. I wanted it. She told my father that my mother had died to give me freedom. She had not saved me for a life of imprisonment. He agreed in the end. It was a careful plan. My father led me and Winky up to the top box early in the day. Winky was to say that she was saving a seat for my father. I was to sit there invisible. When everyone had left the box, we would emerge. Winky would appear to be alone. Nobody would ever know. Winky didn't know that I was growing stronger. I was starting to fight my father's impious curse. There were times when I was almost myself again. There were brief periods when I seemed outside his control. It happened there in the top box. It was like waking from a deep sleep. I found myself out in public in the middle of the match, and I saw in front of me a wand sticking out of a body's pocket. I had not been allowed a wand since from before Azkaban. I stole it. Winky didn't know. Winky is frightened of height. She had her face hidden. Master Barty, you bad boy, whispered Winky, tear trickling between her fingers. So you took the wand, said Dumbledore. And what did you do with it? We went back to the tent, said Crouch. Then we heard them. We heard the Death Eaters, the one who had ever been to Azkaban, the one who had never suffered from my master. They had turned their back on him. They were not enslaved as I was. They were free to seek him, but they did not. They were merely making sport of Muggles. The sound of their voices awoke me. My mind was clearer than it had been in years. I was hungry. I had the want. I wanted to attack them for their disloyalty to my master. My father had left the tent. He had gone to free the Muggle. Pinky was afraid to see me so angry. She used her own brand of magic to bind me to her. She pulled me from the tent, pulled me into the forest, away from the Death Eaters. I tried to hold her back. I wanted to return to campsite. I wanted to show those Death Eaters what loyalty to the Dark Lord meant and to punish them for their lack of it. I used the stolen wand to cast the dark mark into the sky. Mystery Wizard arrived. They shot stunning spell everywhere. One of the spells came through the tree where Winky and I stood. The bond connecting with us was broken. We were both stunned. When Winky was discovered, my father knew I must be nearby. He searched the bushes where she had been found and felt me lying there. He waited until the other ministry member had left the forest. He put me back under the Emperor's skirt and took me home. He dismissed Winky. She has failed him. She had let me acquire a wand. She had almost let me escape. Winky let out a wail of despair. Now it was just father and I alone in the house. And then Crouch had rolled on his neck and instant grins trailed across his face. My master came for me. He arrived at our house late one night in the arms of his servant Wormtail. My master had found out that I was still alive. He had captured Bertha Jorkins in Albania. He had tortured her. She told him a great deal. She told him about the Triwizard tournament. She told him the old order Moody was going to teach at Hogwarts. He tortured her until he broke through the memory charm my father had planned upon her. She told him I had escaped from Azkaban. She told him my father kept me in prison to prevent me from seeking my master. And so my master knew that I was still his faithful servant, perhaps the most faithful of all. My master conceived a plan based upon the information Bertha had given him. He needed me. He arrived at our house nearly midnight. My father answered the door. The smile spread wide over crowd space as though recalling the sweetest memory of his life. Winky's petrified brown eyes were visible through her fingers. She seemed to appeal to see speak. It was very quick. My father was placed under the emperor's care by my master. Now my father was the one imprisoned. Control. My master forced him to go about his business as usual, to act as though nothing was wrong. And I was released. I awoke. I was myself again, alive, as I hadn't been in years. As what did Lord Voldemort ask you to do? Said Dumbledore. He asked me whether I was ready to risk everything for him. I was ready. It was my dream, my greatest ambition to serve him, to prove myself to him. He told me he needed to place a faithful servant at Hogwarts, a servant who would guide Harry Potter through the Triwizard Tournament without appearing to do so. A servant who would watch over Harry Potter, ensure to reach the Triwizard Cup, turn the cup into the portkey, which would take the first person to touch it to my master. But first, you need Alastor Moody, said Dumbledore. His blue eyes were blazing, though his voice remained calm. Wormtail, and I did it. He had prepared the apologies portion beforehand. The journey to the house, Moody put up struggle. There was a commotion. Managed to subdue him just in time, force him into a compartment of his own magical trunk, some of his ear, and added it to the potion. I drank it. It became Moody's double. I took his leg and his eyes. I was ready to face Arthur Weasley when he arrived, sought out muggles who had heard a disturbance. I made the dustbin move around the yard. I told Arthur Weasley I had heard instructors in my yard who had set up the dustbin. When I packed up Moody's clothes and Dark Dictator put them into the trunk with Moody and set off for Hogwarts. Kept him alive under the Emperor's curve. I wanted to be able to question him, to find out about his past, learn his habits so that I could fool even Dumbledore. I was needed his here to make Polyjuice potion. The other ingredients were easy. I stole Boomslang's skin from the dragon. When the potion master found me in his office, I said I was under order to search it. And what became of Wormtail after you attacked Moody? Said Dumbledore. Wormtail returned to care of master in my father's house and to keep watch over my father. But your father escaped, said Dumbledore. Yes, after a while he began to fight the Emperor's court just as I had done. There were periods when he knew what was happening. My master decided it was no longer safe for my father to leave the house. He forced him to send a letter to the ministry instead. He made him write to say he was ill, but Wormtail neglected his duty. He was not watchful enough. My father escaped. My master guessed that he was heading for Hogwarts. My father was going to tell Dumbledore everything, to confess. He was going to admit that he had smuggled me from Azkaban. My master sent me word of my father's escape. He told me to stop him at all costs. So I waited and watched. I used the map I had from Harry Potter, the map that had almost ruined everything. Map, Dumbledore, quickly. Map is that Potter's map of Hogwarts. Potter saw me on it. Potter saw me stealing more ingredients for Polyjuice potion from Snape's office one night. Thought I was my father. We have the same first name. I took the map from Potter that night. I told him my father hated dark wizard. Potter believed my father was after Snape. For a week I waited for my father to arrive at Hogwarts. At last one evening the map showed my father entering the ground. I pulled on my invisibility cloak and went down to meet him. He was walking around the edge of the forest. Then Potter came and Crumb. I waited. I could not hurt Potter. My master needed him. Potter ran to get Dumbledore. I stunned Crumb. I killed my father. No. Wailed Winky. Master Barty, what is you saying? You killed your father. Dumbledore said in the same soft voice. What did you do with the body? Carried it onto the forest, covered it with invisibility cloak. I had the map with me. I watched Potter run into castle. He said, mate Snape. Dumbledore joined them. I watched Potter bringing Dumbledore out of the castle. I walked back out of the forest, doubled around him, then went to meet them. I told Dumbledore Snape had told me where to come. Dumbledore told me to go and look for my father. I went back to my father's body, watched the man. When everyone was gone, I transfigured my father's body. He became bone. I buried it while wearing the invisibility cloak in the freshly dug earth in front of Hagrid's cabin. There was completely silence now, except for Winky's continuous sob. Then Dumbledore said, and tonight I offered to carry the Triwizardy Cup into the maze before dinner. Whispered Barty Crouch, turn it into the portkey. My master's plan worked. He returned to power, and I will be honored by him beyond the dream of wizard. The insane smile lit his feature once more, and his head dropped into and his head dropped onto his shoulder as Winky wailed and sobbed at his side. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for next chapter. Till then, see ya. Bye bye.